I'm Sharon Bill. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I've been asking myself recently, why do we bother to play an instrument? Why spend all of that time, such a lot of time and such a lot of effort? Why do we bother wanting to try and play an instrument? And I'm reminded of a little sort of saying that I was told quite some time ago, and I think that gives us the key to the answer. In life, in everything that we do, in whatever we do, we can either be creators or consumers, and inevitably will be degrees of both along the way, and we'll sometimes create and be more actively involved in some things, and some things we just sort of passively use. And it's a necessary part of existence to use things to consume, but more often than not we consume where we could be creating, and we're individually drawn to create or be actively involved in different things. And I think the most obvious example of that is food. You know, we need to eat, and in order to eat we need to make food. And so some people are actively engaged in spending hours upon hours upon hours in the kitchen creating cordon bleu meals as a work of art as much as just creating food. And so that creativity in creating a product of a meal is what their passion is. There are some, and you know, and I know both extremes, there are some who never set foot in a kitchen, eat out as much as they possibly can, and just don't even bother with a cooker particularly as such. I think many of us fall somewhere in between, and maybe you don't just perhaps cook a slice of beans on toast and job done for your meal, but that sort of illustrates the point more than anything. Now, why we are drawn to do certain things over and above others individually is too metaphysical a question for me. So the fact is, we are drawn to different things owing to our personality and goodness knows what other factors, nature, nurture, the whole debate continues. But I remember as a child being taken to the theatre to see Joseph and his amazing Technical Dreamcoat. And we were way back at the back in the gods, as it were, in the cheap seats, I presume. And I remember I so enjoyed it. But I remember sitting in the sort of the dark of the auditorium, crying. And I don't cry very often. And it was I didn't understand why I was crying. Now, I know myself a little bit better these days, and I understand now that what it was within me was this hankering to engage more fully in what was going on. I wanted to be part of it somehow, and I couldn't articulate those thoughts at that time as a child, but I wasn't happy to just sit and watch, just passively let it go over me. What a great show, and go home. Now, as I said, I know myself better now these days, and it wasn't because I wanted to be on the theatrical stage. It isn't even that I particularly want to desperately be a performer, but I want to engage in music. And I remember also at school feeling this drawn lure of the music department. And even when I started, and I've done a whole vlog on this, I'll put links in the cards and the descriptions, about how I remember sitting there in the music room thinking, I don't understand any of this. I don't understand it at all, but I really, really want to. I really want to be able to be part of this. And you spend your life then moving forwards in that, don't you? And so it just proves the point that we play music, I think, because we want to actively engage, and we want to do it in more degrees or less than others. There are those who perhaps want to actually be on the stage or be in the orchestral pit and want to be there doing it. Now, I have played in orchestras, and it was a good time and I enjoyed it, but it's not what particularly sort of fires my imagination as such. So I wouldn't say I was a performer at all. That doesn't drive me. But just getting into the nuts and bolts of music is what really pulls my heartstrings, as it were. And so we either create or we consume, and there are degrees of each level for each individual person. I remember reading a story of in a book. It was what was it? It was a Victorian tapestry book. Sounds like a gripping read, I know, but it was fascinating. I love William Morris. And the lady who wrote the book was telling a bit of her life story. And she was saying that, it was just normal to her and her family to just make what you wanted. She needed a bed. She was growing out of her childhood bed. She needed a new bed. So her dad carved her one with all swan heads at the base of the bed and so on. There were even photographs in the book, and it was absolutely beautiful. And she said that there was a time when they needed some new pottery for their kitchen, some plates and cups and things. And so her dad went and did a pottery class and made them. It's like, wow, that is something else, isn't it? Now, I perhaps don't need to go and make pottery because I live on the cusp of the potteries. And so I just sort of nip a couple of miles down the road and just buy pottery ware from local handmade shops or local hotel ware shops, and just buy the real McCoy just down the road. I think I'll leave that to the professionals. But, I do like to engage fully in certain things. I don't like to just be passive, and as much as I can in most things I want to try and be actively involved. Like I want to make my own clothes. I can't make all of my items of clothing, and I don't spin my own yarn, as it were. I know people who do, and I don't sew every stitch of clothing, but I do like to make my own clothes. I want to be actively involved in the process. I don't want to just passively consume and leave it at that. And that's the same with music for sure. I love the book, The Lord of the Rings. Again, I've mentioned that in previous vlogs. And I just love Tolkien. And of course, I really, really like the movie. And I'm not prepared to just leave it at that though. So I love the soundtrack. So of course I've got the soundtrack and I listen to the audiobook all the time. But I want to play the music as well. So, my daughter's been visiting. And so, we did a bit of a hash of, come on then, let's just pick up some music and have a go. And we were playing Concerning Hobbits. She was on a flute, I was playing piano. And I want to play this music. Or I've done embroideries of maps of the Shire or places like that, Thorin Oakenshield's map as he goes off into the lonely mountains and so on. So I want to actively engage in these things. And that's why I want to play an instrument. I don't want to just listen to beautiful music, although I do. Of course I do. I want to sing in a choir. I absolutely love Mozart's Requiem. It's not enough for me to just sit and listen. I want to sing it. I want to be part of it. I want to be in that mix. I absolutely love playing, like Haydn sonatas, or I quite like playing Debussy, or what else am I playing? I quite like playing like a bit of 20th century random Bartok and stuff. And, and I love, for example, like the soundtrack to Pride and Prejudice, the Keira Knightley one, although I have issue with aspects of the film. The soundtrack is beautiful, and there's a particular piece, Dawn, that I absolutely love. And I remember we were watching the movie, like having a bit of a girly night one time, and we were watching Pride and Prejudice, and I said, oh, this music's so lovely. I wonder if you can buy the music. And so the chat goes on, oh yeah, I'm sure you can buy the CD. And it's like, no, that's not what I meant. I wonder, can I get the sheet music? And it's like, we both speak in English, but a completely different language, because I wasn't happy to just sit and listen. I want to play this music as well. So, it just shows why we're driven. And some of these things are really tricky. And it's a lifetime's endeavour, isn't it, to get these skills. And I think there's always something new to learn, isn't there? So I always feel this sense of an imposter syndrome where I think, oh gosh, I don't know what I'm on about here. what on earth am I doing? But there's no way I can ever just say, well, I'm just packing in. It's like, well, I feel very conscious of these aspects of things that I don't know or can't do. And so I spend my time in an evening, all my spare time, what I can, as much as I can around general life, in working to gain these skills that I feel like I should have, because I want to be able to do that. I don't want to just sit back and let it wash over me. I want to do it myself. I want to actively engage. And that's the thing that motivates us, isn't it? And drives us to want to do these things. We want to play this music that we love so much. It's not just enough to sit and listen. We want to actively engage in it as well. We either create or we consume. And as far as possible, I want to try and create. I want to put back in, not just take out. That's why I'm doing the YouTube channel as well. That's why I'm doing this theory channel, because I love my subjects so much, and I love music theory so much, because it's kind of like peeling back the layers and really getting into what's going on in these marvellous compositions and understanding the music that we want to play and seeing the magic of how the harmonies all pull together. And I don't want to just keep that sort of in my little study, as it were. I want to share my love. And although I don't suggest that I am the absolute authority, I don't suggest that I absolutely know it all. But, I have some knowledge, with grateful thanks to those who've taught me and are still teaching me. There's always something new to learn. We're always chatting about, what does this mean? And what do you think about this? How do you think this works? There's always something new to learn. I think the second you think you know it all, that's when you're really in trouble, isn't it? And I'm very conscious of how much more I do want to learn. But that's why I'm doing this YouTube channel, because I don't want to just consume. I've had great teachers. I don't want to just take that. I want to create and, add into the mix as well. And I've so many plans of the things that I want to do, and I am beavering away in the background, and that's my hobby. So outside of family life and work and so on, I will then, in my spare time, be recording theory videos, and I've so many plans of what I want to do, and have these great goals that are kind of, it's a lifetime's work, isn't it? And I've got years of work set ahead of me that I want to do, and hopefully I'll get quicker at it as, I'm getting used to these new processes, and, I'm getting there. I have to fit it in around work though, so it might take me some time, but I'm really getting there. I just thought it was a really interesting conundrum. Why do we bother? It's a lot of bother, isn't it? But it's a bother that is dear to our hearts, and it's because we want to actively engage and not just passively let it wash over us. And I think that goes some way to explaining what's making us tick inside. Thanks for watching. Bye.